for joining you today. A lot of people don't know that KQED also has a completely dedicated education department that's committed to serving directly teachers and classrooms in the Bay Area and beyond. So in addition to the radio and the TV, the Downton Abbey, anything that you have access to through KQED, there's also this department that is designed to serve you and your students. We have a couple things that we do as a department that we produce and share. We have a site for teacher professional development called KQED Teach, which has free online courses in media literacy, analysis, and production. And so that's for teachers. We also have KQED Learn, which we're going to be talking about today, which is a site for secondary classrooms where students can connect. We have our YouTube series, Above the Noise, which stars Miles Bess, a recent SF State grad, and that's part of the KQED Learn site. And then we're also really happy to partner with PBS on the PBS Media Literacy Educator Certification Program, which is a way for you, if you have leadership and interest in building your media literacy skills, both media production and media analysis, you can earn a stack of 8 micro-credentials and become PBS Media Literacy certified. So that's something else that our department does. And again, not a lot of people know about it, but I'm glad to be connected with you today. So let's just be real about the moment we're in to kind of start off. I didn't want to start off with something that just sort of is blithely like assuming that everything is normal, and we're all not in a situation that's pretty ever-changing, evolving, frustrating, scary. So I just want to acknowledge that and open up for some sharing to get us started. What's on the top of your mind right now? You can unmute and share this, or you can comment in the chat. I just want to open space for this reality that we're in. So Annette writes, creating engaging lessons. Yes, that is extremely important, no matter if we're in person or online.
Monitoring class discussions with so many online distractions.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. That is, yes, very true. Janet writes, keeping kids engaged. Ginny writes, being overwhelmed with work. Yes, absolutely. Krista writes, I'm most concerned about connecting with and engaging students as I get to know them, right? In March, we at least knew our students, even though we were all scrambling, and it's a little bit different now. So that's something to think about too. Other comments, or again, feel free to unmute and just speak. Nicole writes, engaging students, keeping up the rigor while keeping students participating. Trisha writes, settling in on one approach. So many possibilities. Yeah, definitely.
I really want to engage my students in what is most important to them and tap in what my core standards and curriculum needs to be embedded to assist them.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Absolutely. Other comments or chat comments? Okay, I mean, that's, I think, a really good temperature of where we are. And this session is actually going to touch on some of those things, which is great. You're in the right place. But, you know, at the same time, I don't want to imply that this is going to solve every problem, or this is just, you know, a silver bullet that's magically going to change everything. The world that we're living in is really scary and weird. And I feel like the resources that we're going to talk about this hour are going to help with that, especially around student engagement, connecting to issues that students care about, and giving them a way to share their views, not only with their own classmates, but with others. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And again, this is one possible tool you can use. And it's definitely going to connect to some of the things that we talked about. And hopefully be a help in this situation. So let's talk about KQED Learn, which again, really connects to a lot of what I heard just now. It's a site, it's free. Let's just get that out of the way. We're public media, so we serve the community, and our services are at no cost. And it's a space that we've built to create a safe space for students to practice civil discourse and media literacy with their peers. And I'll show you how that works in a second. But it really is built around those core competencies of sort of arguing from evidence, listening, responding, engaging in academic discourse in a way that's both standards aligned, and we try to make it really engaging as well. I think it's especially relevant now when students are in their homes, so they're not even like with their peers in person, to be able to connect to maybe a wider audience of students and youth. And so that's what KQED has always sought to do. The site's about 2 years old, so it's not like it was created just for these times, but it's definitely something that can be used in these times. So there are 2 projects on the site. We're going to be focusing today on KQED Learn discussions. And what a discussion does is that it asks students to watch a video text to explore an issue. There's also a list in every discussion topic of articles you can also draw on or they can read. But the focus of the Learn discussion is really a fairly short video text. And then they have an opportunity to kind of weigh the multiple perspectives expressed in the text and then discuss them. And this is how it looks. So we can see here, they can post a reply, post their response, and then they can reply. So a student here in Sonoma County is replying to a student in Oakland. There are classrooms from all over the country on the site. So sometimes you're talking to someone in your region and sometimes you're talking to someone who's not in your region. And so this is a response to the discussion we saw earlier, why is coronavirus hitting people of color so hard? And then these students are having a discussion about that. Students can reply, as you can see. They can also sort of applaud what other students are saying. As teachers, we can monitor these discussions, but we cannot participate. This is a youth-only site, and youth voices are the only voices on the platform. Students can also post multimedia responses. So in addition to posting text, they can also respond with an image, a video, audio piece, a slideshow, make sure those permissions are open, or a map. So there's more than one way for students to engage, which is great to reach a variety of learners, and also to practice different skills. Each discussion comes with a video transcript in English and Spanish, a glossary of a few kind of just-in-time Tier 2 vocab, a lesson plan for you, and a student viewing guide for the students. And then there are some general resources that serve kind of all discussions, some academic language sentence frames, some model discussion responses, and a discussion rubric. So all of the resources that we have on the site, and we're going to go to the site in a second. I just want to give you an overview before I start clicking around madly in a site you've never been before. All of the resources that we have on the site are modifiable and shareable. So if you're going to give it to students, we make it so you can save it, a copy it on your own Google Drive, modify it as you choose, and then share it with your students. So I'm going to go to the site. And I'm going to kind of drive you through what I just said. So KQED Learn can be found at learn.kqed.org. If you try to get to it through the KQED main site, it's extremely confusing. Do not do that. So it's learn.kqed.org, and you can see that up here in my URL. And then you sign in. You'll create a teacher account. You can also sign in with Google. And what you do if you want to invite classes is that you will create class groups, and sorry about that. You'll create class groups on your dashboard and then invite students to join the site using a code. So students can't sign on to the site without a code from their teacher. Once you get here, you'll hit discussions, and you'll see a wide variety of discussions to choose from. You can sort by topic. For example, I could sort by civics and humanities and get some COVID-related topics, but then also lots of other topics on lots of other issues students might be interested in. There's media and technology, there's election related topics, there's all sorts of topics that you can sort by. And basically just dive in and see kind of what things your students might be interested in. You can also, of course, give them a choice. Once you get going with this project, it's great to say, why don't you join a discussion and participate in it? What interests you? Question from Janet, does it link with Google Classroom? It does, Janet. Thank you for asking that important question. So let's just jump into a discussion. Universal healthcare, that seems appropriate. So if you jump into the universal healthcare discussion, you see the central video. You see the link to the transcript and the glossary. So you can just click on this or click on this. You can add it to your Google Classroom. And then you have a discussion prompt and a make and share prompt. And the make and share is like, if students want to extend it, or if you want students to extend it and add a little more rigor to this process. The make and share prompt is usually a media prompt that encourages students to make a particular piece of media related to the topic. And the discussion can also be a media response, but it's usually meant to be a little shorter. And so you can see, note teachers cannot respond or post, but if we can monitor. Students can write here, or they can click here and they can add any of these choices to their post. You can see students from Oklahoma. That's a kind of, that's not a university. It's like a continuing, like a high school to college class that's in here. So those are 11th and 12th graders from Oklahoma. You can see, San Francisco middle schools. You can see students from all over the place replying to each other. So there's lots of different ways that students can hear Santa Rosa. Hey, Sonoma. There's lots of ways that students can interact with each other on the site. They have at their disposal sentence frames kind of at their disposal. They can click on that. There's a code of conduct. And again, the lesson plan is for you, but the lesson plan always links to a classroom viewing guide. And then the classroom viewing guide is a Google Doc that can be modified. It starts with a quick write. Just what do you think about this topic? As quick writes often do. And then it breaks down the video by time codes. So you can use these time codes to ask comprehension questions and embed them if you'd like. Or you can ask students to just pause the video and answer these questions as they watch asynchronously. And then it guides them through sort of having them evaluate the evidence. So evidence in favor of universal healthcare, evidence against it, and then asks them to sort of make their own decision. What evidence do they find the most compelling? So they're not making a decision, and they're not, they're weighing the sides of the issue. And then they're drafting a response that they then post. So there's a lot of, I can see that is the wrong question. I'm just going to edit this right now. So that's kind of the way that it flows, the lessons. And all of them are pretty much the same in terms of the lesson pattern. So no matter what the discussion topic that you are looking at, the lesson flow kind of goes the same, from a quick write, watching, evaluating the evidence on the multiple perspectives, and then making your own claim and backing it up with reasoning. Again, lots of different choices of discussion topics. That was a lot. I don't know if anyone is still with me, but I would love to answer some questions about this. And we'll have time actually later on in the session for you to go exploring. So if you're already diving in, you can still dive in, but there will be time as part of the session to do that if you want to just come back with us and ask any questions that are on top of mind. You can post them in the chat or you can unmute, that's fine.
Does the content tend to be more current event focused?
Great question. Yeah, there are most of them are current issues. A lot of them do have historical connections. So the video might go back and say, well, how do we get to this point? And unpack the history of a particular topic. We also have some more general science related and more kind of, I would say larger thematic topics from PBS partners. So American Portrait and Deep Look, which is produced at KQED, are different kinds of science and sort of more thematic topics that ask more universal questions than current questions. But most of them center around a topic that students might have heard about, but maybe don't know a lot about. Great question. Yeah, it definitely does not align to every single content area. It definitely would be more of a way to practice claims, evidence, and reasoning using, current events. But it would not serve the needs of particular, like content standards. Some of them do actually check off some of those, but most of them sort of address more the, viewing diverse types of media, making sense of viewpoints, analyzing a viewpoint, making a claim, and backing it up with evidence. Great. Yeah, Janet, I agree. Like, you might not have a lot of connections to world history, but you might. I mean, depending on the topic, there's a lot of ways that current events today touch on history, and each topic that does address that goes into the history of it. Other questions or comments?
Without looking at the actual website, how can I monitor appropriate and safe student responses?
Awesome, such a great question. When you enroll your students on the site, you will have a dashboard that lists all of your students, and you can click into your students and see everything they post on the site. So you can monitor that way. There's also a flagging system, and I'll show you how that looks on the site. So comments can be flagged, and when a comment is flagged, it's removed from the site. And if it's a problem, we contact you. I have to say though, I'll be super real with you. I'm one of the people that adjudicate the flags on the KQED Learn site. And we just don't really have a big problem with inappropriate comments. I know you're thinking like, oh, but you don't know X kid or Y kid. It's amazing. There's just very, very little inappropriate conduct on the site. It's clearly an academic platform. Students rise to that challenge. And they have lots of other places online to be squirrely. So they definitely know that teachers are watching. And we don't actually have a huge problem. But if there's a problem, we will definitely let you know. The comment will surely get flagged. There's a ton of eyes on the site. And what we do is we'll send a screenshot of the comment to you because it'll be removed. You won't be able to see it. And then you can deal with it in the way that happens. But again, it really doesn't happen. And sometimes I get responses. The few flags I've sent, I haven't actually sent one in like months. The teacher will be like, oh no, I'm so sorry. They'll never be on the site again. And that's not the response we want. KQED Learn discussions are a complete walled garden. This is not the open internet. This is a perfect place for students to make mistakes, learn about how to be appropriate online, and learn from their experience, and try again. So this is actually a great space for your students to make those silly mistakes that we can then support them in learning better academic habits online.
And with the number of responses in those conversations amongst students, would I be able to pick on Jose Sanchez and see what he has contributed over a series of class periods?
Yeah, so from your dashboard, I'm gonna actually log off and sign on as in my teacher account. So I can show you, my student account my teacher account is not super built out, but you will be able to see a little bit. So you'll be able to, so you can manage your students, right? You can see this is my dashboard. Let me go back, that was quick, right? So you'll be able to click on manage students, and then you'll be able to see everything that Jose did on the site.
Okay, great.
So you'll be able to click on, like, these are like my colleagues, they haven't done anything, but you'll be able to see like whatever that student has done, no matter where they are on the site. And so by clicking by student, you'll be able to see it, at both their responses and their replies.
That's awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, that's a great question. And again, it's not a problem, but we have to prepare for it. So I appreciate that. Other questions or comments on discussions? Okay, so I promised we will be able to go and kind of explore, but I want to sort of kind of unpack some ways that you can use these discussions both asynchronously and synchronously in a way that perhaps will get the year off to a good start, because as you can probably see, you could start assigning these once your students get in the habit of participating in them. You can kind of let them loose, or you can assign them more regularly. And so it's good to sort of get started on the right foot. Jen asked about sixth graders. Yes, sixth graders get a lot out of this. I also taught middle school when I was in the classroom for 14 years. And we have done extensive user studies on the site. And what we found, which is really sweet in a way, we found this during the pilot, and Kenilworth Junior High in Petaluma in Sonoma County was one of the pilot schools, and there were other pilot schools around the Bay Area. And we found that sixth graders and seventh graders and eighth graders, they see high school students on the site. Right? And so all of a sudden things are more real and more serious, right? Because high schoolers are going to be reading their comments and maybe even replying. It happens. And then high schoolers are a little bit more, it's cute. Like they're a little bit more, like for instance, they've stepped in situations where students have gotten a little bit close to the line. We've seen high school students step in and say like, you guys, this is not the place for this. So that's been kind of fun to see high school students do. And then high school students are also, you find it sort of the dialogue going both ways. So it's been kind of cool to see that both the younger students and the older students benefit from this. And then the example you saw in the slide deck is 2 high school students. So they also then have a chance to with each other as well. So it's, yeah, it is cool. It's cool to see that discussion happening. So let's talk about asynchronous rollout. And I don't know how you folks are thinking, but what you would do is create your class groups, and then I would preview a couple of discussions, maybe that align with your content or that you think are really good or you think your students will especially be interested in. Speaking of sixth grade, there's one on the site around are video games addictive, yes or no? And it's really interesting to break down the science around video games. Students, not surprisingly, love that one. But there's lots of different topics, both kind of school life and also current events. And it can be really serious, or it can be kind of less serious and more fun. So identify 4 or 5 discussions before they go on the site. And then I would create a poll to have them choose the first one the class does. Because I think that could be a way to get students really interested in, being able to drive the content for that first discussion. And then you would send them the site link and the class codes. You would assign the first discussion on Google Classroom or whatever you use. You would give them the classroom viewing guide. And then maybe you would give them feedback on those viewing guides before they posted the first time. Maybe you would just have them post and then have a conversation later. It kind of is up to you. But that could be a way to kind of roll it out using the documents on the site without having to walk them through every single step in a synchronous experience. If you were going to have a synchronous experience, you do pretty much the same thing, only it would just happen like we're doing now, right? You would create the class groups, you would send them the codes, you would discuss the topics, they would pick some to vote on, you would vote on them. And then maybe the first one you would watch all together, like over Zoom or over Google Meets, discuss it, kind of break it down like you would in the classroom, and then have students post. I see the chat is popping with questions, so I'm going to stop. Oh, you do have access to the slides. Thanks, Amanda. So that could be a way that you roll it out synchronously. So I don't know how your schools are doing synchronous or asynchronous, but this is the kind of thing that you can, of course, watch the video over Zoom together, talk about it, go over the discussion guide together, and then send them off to do it on their own. Once you get this rolling, of course, it becomes something that they know how to do. And so they're honing those skills and you're able to guide them, and they're able to guide themselves much more independently. Again, it's for most grade levels, it should take maybe a class period, maybe a little less than a class period. We post new content every couple weeks. So there's always new episodes being made and new content being posted. I heard a few people talking about rigor and maybe thinking that they want to engage students in more project-based approaches to issue analysis or topic analysis. So the make and share prompts that I pointed out really kind of get to that piece. There's a whole article here that you can click out to once you have access to the slides that have kind of an explanation of what we mean by make and share and why you might want to do it. But it is a more in-depth look at a topic, and the students are sharing in a multimedia format most frequently. And so if students are looking for something extra to do, you want to push students, or you want to do a media project together but don't want it to be a huge big thing that you're all going to have to go off on your separate ways and then come back, it might be good to do a make and share or two to see how that goes. Most of them are graphic, some of them are video based, some of them are just individual responses like, what do you think about this personally, or how does this look in your community? Like the one about voting asks, there's a video about gerrymandering, and it asks students to look at their own congressional district and see like, how do the boundaries look? Does it look weird? Does it look like they've been drawn all wonky? Tell us about your own congressional district. So there's make and shares that are both kind of deeper dives, but also make and shares that ask students to look around and share their own experience with others on the site. Do you connect the segment with content discussed on radio segments of KQED? Sometimes, not formally, but yes, there's lots of different ways that, and we often use KQED News as citations for our own videos. And so if you go to the citations button in each discussion, you'll find a lot of connections between KQED news reporting and the topic, and also other news outlets, not just KQED. So the New York Times or NPR or any kind of source, reliable source. We always show how we got our information to make our videos. And in that list of citations is a way for you to then ask your students, or for you to read deeper if they're interested in that.
I mean, is it safe to say that you would also offer opposing viewpoints as well, just to give that balance of the argument for students?
Yeah, all of our discussions have multiple perspectives.
Okay.
So the universal healthcare, for example, which some people might think is a very left-wing issue, that yay, universal healthcare, there are arguments in that, many arguments in that video against universal healthcare. So when we pick topics, we really try to pick topics that allow students to delve into multiple perspectives. So we actually don't pick topics. We stay away from topics that are one-sided, right? Like we don't want to create a false equivalency by saying, oh, this one has another side. But we do dive into topics where we can, kind of explore the issue, students can encounter those multiple perspectives, and then they have evidence to make up their own minds. That's a great question. Okay, so right now what I'd like us to do is take about 5 minutes, and I'm gonna set the timer, the cute dog edition, and go ahead and go on KQED Learn, and kind of takes 5 minutes to like move around and click on things and see how that might work. And in 5 minutes, come back. I'd love to hear, I'd love for a bunch of folks to be able to share what they found, what they didn't find, maybe that they were hoping to find. And we'll do sort of a crowdsourcing resource share of what you found on the site. So don't go far, but go on to KQED Learn, and we'll be back together in 5 minutes. And if you have any questions, I'll be here on the chat. So just make sure to post in the chat and I can answer. My timer's taking a little bit of time to get itself ready. Oh, I'm not going to restart my device. Anyway, I'll just set a timer and we'll be back in 5 minutes. everyone. Take about 30 more seconds to finish up what you're looking at. And we're going to come back together. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other, but I will share it again if we need to go back to the site and clarify anything that came up. Does someone want to start sharing what they found, something that will work, maybe something that won't work, questions that you have that you saw?
I'll start. I was looking at the question about what does it mean to be anti-racist, and just watched a little bit of the video and looked at the lesson guide. I teach freshmen at Petaluma High School and seniors. The seniors are involved in the expository reading and writing course, so a lot of the content is managed because we're participating in a grant right now. But I think with my freshmen in particular, they don't have social science in the freshman year, so we use the literature quite often to be that bridge between the stories that we're reading and the experiences that we're having. So the whole idea about anti-racism is key, I think, especially in our communities where a lot of our kids have a fairly sheltered existence, especially now with shelter in place, but
Right.
but it's really on the forefront. So I was just intrigued to see how the concept and how the content rolled out, and I think it's quite promising.
Wonderful, great. Thank you for sharing that connection.
Sure.
I was thoroughly impressed. I just went through and looked at some of the media responses. So I was really impressed with some of the kids' work. I watched one girl's video response, and it's very practiced. I think it was probably they're obviously assignments, and then a guy's audio clip. And I like that they have the option to express with their face and their voice, or doing it entirely audio. Cause like I'm dysgraphic, so writing is hard for me. So I would have always given the opportunity to do an audio file. I could talk someone, out of a paper bag if I needed to, but writing, using the end of the pencil to stab through, outside of my wheelhouse. So giving them that option, and the content the kids was making, and of course this has to do with their educators supporting them, but it was really cool, and it's really nice to get to see the variety of content given to the kids, because these kids are super savvy in multimedia technology.
Awesome, great. Thanks for that comment. We really opened up the media with the intention of serving as many students as possible and as many different ways. So that's the intention. I think media making is important for learning, but it really was the intention to make commenting accessible for a variety of students and supporting them in that. I've gotten some questions in the chat about Spanish. So all of the Above the Noise videos have Spanish transcripts in addition to English transcripts, and you can also toggle the closed caption to be the Spanish closed caption, and we update them. Like we have an actual teacher who translates for us. It's not just like the YouTube Spanish, sort of, those aren't as great. So the Spanish transcript should be correct. In other words, like it should make sense. In terms of supporting newcomers or folks that are really still developing English language, I think that there are things on the site that support that, such as the sentence frames, the transcripts, the ability to watch the episode multiple times, the ability to slow down the episode, right, when you're playing it on YouTube. But again, I feel like students will need support, additional support with that as well. Other comments of things that they found?
So I had some questions about more of the letter to parents going home and the permission forms in the COPA release. I saw that those were in English. Are there any Spanish versions as well?
Yeah, so it depends on, did you find those in the resource section around the media challenge?
I found them in the teacher resources program information. So I just clicked on resources and went there.
Yeah, so it's great. If Discussions is a walled garden. So Discussions is not the open internet. And so a lot of teachers don't get a release if they're only going to participate in discussions. There is another project on the site, which is the media challenge section that is available. The showcase is open to the public and you will need to get a release for that. We do have, I think, forms in Spanish for that if you want to email me. But the discussions, because it's not public and because it's an education only kind of walled garden, there's different kind of levels of privacy because there's no way for anyone to access the student work off the site. There is a release form for the media challenges, which is accessible through the public can view those. It's kind of up to you how you approach it, or if your school or district kind of general release covers that, since it's not a public site. And Lisa, if you want to email me, I can email you the forms we do have in Spanish. These are great questions. Other things folks found, things that are going through your head right now to share with the community here. Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of getting started on your end. So you may have already discovered this, but obviously when you sign in as a teacher, and then it takes you to a dashboard. You're not required to make any classes, but when you want to go, you'll get there. You'll create a new class. You have to put something in here if you are getting an error message because you just put like, you know, 9th grade English and you didn't put anything here because you know what your first period class is. You have to put something here and then press create. I recommend creating a class for each section of students, just like you do on Google, what I have on Google Classroom. It'll just be easier for you to keep track of everyone's responses that way. And then they get a code. You send them the code, and when they go to sign on to the site for the first time, they will be prompted to enter the code. They won't be able to access the site without the code. So make sure that they have that code in order to sign on. And then the first time they sign in, they'll enter their email, or they'll be able to sign on with Google through their student account. Either way, if you don't use Google at your school, or for some reason they want to use another email, it's just an identifier. And they'll enter a password. Whatever password they choose to enter will be their password for the site. So definitely encourage them to sign on with Google, but if for some reason your school doesn't do that, or if the student doesn't do that, whatever they put in the first time they sign in as their password will be their password. And we don't collect any information from students. It's kind of hard to reset passwords. We can do it, but you have to email us and we have to reset it manually. So just make sure they know that. It's kind of a security measure, but it actually comes and bites us sometimes. So Google sign-on is probably the best if your school does that. They'll join with their join code, and that's what they'll do. Any questions about the sign-on process for students? It's pretty seamless, but I'll give you my email at the end of this presentation, and you can definitely email me. Teachers email all the time. Can you reset so-and-so's password? Yes, we can. It's okay. It's totally fine. The other thing on the side that we talked about a little bit, thanks to Lisa's question, is the Youth Media Challenge. And this is, we're gonna have a lot of media challenges that come up starting in the second semester, but right now we're running a challenge around the election called Let's Talk About Election 2020. In that, students create an audio or a video commentary on an election issue that matters to them. So again, very much invested in student choice and voice. We chose to require either audio or video commentaries for the challenge because it's really important that kids literally hear each other, right? They connect on a voice-to-voice or face and voice level when they're talking about these issues. So that project on the site is under media challenges. So not discussions, which we've been talking about a lot, but media challenges. And again, teachers, you can participate in the challenge with students. Students can participate in the challenge. Students, as you can see, from all over the country are participating. We launched in January, and then of course, we all know what happened in March. But even so, students have been submitting. So we have schools on the map from all over the United States, and hopefully a lot more on their way. Students can view by issue tag, and they can view sort of by school. You can click on the school and see all the videos that they produced or the audios that they produced. There's lots of different folks presenting on the site around a whole bunch of different issues. And so it's exciting to see what students can produce. It's also, so you know, there's a ton of mentor texts produced by peers on the site already that you can check out. And again, this project, this showcase that you see in front of you is open. It's viewable. It's not open to the public. It's viewable by the public. So if someone did navigate to this site from the internet, they could see the showcase. They can't do anything else, obviously. They can't comment, they can't interact, but they can see, which is why we talked about the releases earlier. This is not the case for discussions. Discussions, no one can see unless they're logged onto the site as an educator. So this is a great project. Again, it's a little bit more of a deeper dive, but there's lots and lots of resources that you might have already found to support you in doing this challenge. Yay, Lisa, I'm glad you think it's awesome. We would love to have lots of Sonoma County schools on the map. It's a great project. And I just really encourage you to just click in and view some of the student work that's already been posted. It's amazing. And it's not all high tech. There are a lot of students who put up their camera. I commend you, Minarets High School in Central California. They just put up their camera and they spoke about what was important to them. Of course, supporting it by evidence as well. We'll have other challenges coming in the kind of late fall, second semester around different topics. But this election challenge is open through the inauguration. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Finally, I mentioned KQED Teach, but we have online courses that are instructor-led, which means that your instructors will give you feedback on your assignments, but it's also self-paced, so it's not like there are any synchronous class times for teachers or any required meetups. We have a lot of courses launching. We have an audio podcasting course starting August 24th, again, for teachers, for you, and for librarians, for anyone at your site, teacher leaders, to help build your media literacy skills, and also think about project-based assignments involving media that students can do on Chromebooks and on their phones and in their homes to really engage them in learning during this time. So if you're interested in signing up for any of these courses, again, KQED Teach is for teachers, KQED Learn is for learners, but you can sign up on KQED Teach and find a lot of courses there that will help support you in this work. Awesome. Sunny is going to do the challenge too. Great. Do the challenges have winners? Chelsea, that is a great question. Everyone's published on the showcase, so that everyone gets published on the showcase, but we have already had, and you guys are all in KQED's audience area, there have been youth voices that have risen from the publishing platform on that site to KQED News broadcast. So they've been shown on TV, they've been on the radio, they've been on social media in digital format. Obviously, we would tell you and get your even more permission before that happened, but that's been exciting to see. So I don't know if that makes them winners, but that definitely, we love to elevate youth voice as much as possible in KQED. And so students that start off doing the challenge often find that they have a larger platform than just the publishing site. So the student URL for the site is the same, learn.kqed.org. Wonderful. And if you're interested, we have like a whole training that we also give around doing the challenge, the Youth Media Challenge, the election challenge. So if you're interested in that, keep your eye on KQED education information, because we'll probably be doing trainings around that challenge for teachers to kind of get into more of the details of the challenge later. We wanted to share discussions today because Everyone's getting started with the year, you know, and there's so many ways that you can engage your kids right off the bat. But we'd also love to talk more about the Youth Media Challenge if you're interested in that. So you have my email. You've seen my face. You know I'm a real person. I really encourage you to reach out. I reply very quickly. I'd love to be in dialogue with you. I'd love to hear how we can support your schools. We are your public media station, so we're here for you. And we want to make sure that you're getting the support you need that we can provide. So thank you so much for joining today. I think we're going to end a little bit early, but I'll stay on the Zoom in case anyone has any more questions. And again, definitely reach out. I'm absolutely sincere in asking that if you have any questions that come up after we get off the call. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful conference. And we hope to see you soon on KQED Learn.
So Rachel, I am so excited